I thank the gentleman for yielding, and I rise in very strong support of this critically needed legislation, the Cruise Vessel Security and Safety Act, and I want to compliment the author of the legislation, Ms. Matsui, for her efforts. Like her, I have a tragic story that has been brought to my attention, which will be addressed by this legislation, and I want to make it clear how important I believe this legislation is to millions of potential victims who go unknowingly onto cruise ships. Merrian Carver, the daughter of one of my constituents, Ken Carver, was a vibrant young woman who had her entire life ahead of her. Tragically, at the age of 40, she disappeared from a cruise ship in August of 2004 and was never found. That would be bad enough in itself, but it is the outrageous conduct afterward which this legislation addresses. There have already been comments about the lack of supervision or safety or the lack of protection of the law, but in this instance there was callous disregard. The steward of the ship knew she was on board and that she had used her room the first night, and he conscientiously reported that she did not use her room again any of the subsequent nights. She had gone missing on the second day of the cruise, and nothing was done. No law enforcement officials were contacted, no family members were contacted, nothing was done. In essence, the steward was told, be quiet and mind your own business. At the end of the trip, Merrian's personal effects were simply boxed up. The FBI was not notified, the family was not notified. Ultimately, Merrian's family, in a desperate effort, was forced to hire a law firm and a private investigator. And again, however, they were met with resistance and unnecessary delays in response by the cruise ship. It took days to confirm that Merrian had, in fact, boarded the ship, and video confirmed that she had boarded the ship. And it took even more time to get permission to interview the steward. She had not been in a room for 5 days, and her absence had simply gone unreported and unacted upon. Her family hired a private investigator, and he was resisted in his efforts to talk to people on the ship. Ultimately, the law firm they retained obtained a court order to interview the steward and other personnel responsible. This simply should not happen on ports that call on ships that call on American ports. It should never happen, and Americans need to be aware. Again, I compliment Ms. Matsui. This legislation takes important and reasonable steps to protect Americans and all citizens when they board these ships. Cruise ships have a duty of responsibility to the people who board them. This will make those cruise ships more accountable and safer. It will, as has been mentioned, require some video surveillance to monitor crime on board. It will require crime scene investigation training and certification for some cruise vessel crew members. It will require other provisions to ensure that if one of our loved ones goes missing on a cruise ship, they are notified. Importantly, it will require the preservation of evidence. Like Ms. Matsui's constituent who was the victim of a rape, this legislation will require that rape kits be kept on board in case such a tragic event happens again. This is critically needed legislation. It's followed somewhat of a tortured path. It came across this floor once before, and its ultimate enactment into law was jeopardized by being coupled with other legislation. I compliment the chairman of the subcommittee and the chairman of the full committee and the ranking member. I think it is essential that this legislation be enacted, and I compliment you for separating it for a standalone vote. And with that, I yield back my time.